Alright, now we're going to be talking about Kingdom Hearts, and man, I don't even know really what to say for an intro here. Kingdom Hearts is of course a series that began on the PlayStation 2, and it's certainly become quite the popular one. Being a unique combination of platforming elements with RPG elements, combining Final Fantasy-esque characters with Disney. I don't even remember this game being advertised. In fact, my first exposure to its existence was at an after-school program when I was in elementary. It was one of the games playing on the TV, and I was quite intrigued by it, seeing this colorful world with some Final Fantasy characters. Later on, a friend of mine let me borrow his copy, and I gave the game a try. I didn't get too far since I didn't have a memory card to save my progress on, but I was still having fun with what I was playing. I've gone back to this game now a few times, and despite its issues, I still find it to be a charming title. So let's talk about why I enjoy Kingdom Hearts. Let's get the game's basic setup out of the way here. We begin on a world called Destiny Islands, with 3 characters, Riku, Kairi, and Sora. 3 young kids who dream of one day traveling to other worlds, and thus they decide to make a raft. However, on one fateful night, the trio is separated when the world they live on starts to be corrupted by darkness. Sora finds himself in a place called Traverse Town, a location accessible to those who have lost their world to the darkness. After running into some characters, Sora learns of this weapon called the Keyblade that seems to have chosen him to help protect the other worlds from the darkness, and these creatures called Heartless. At the same time, Sora runs into Donald and Goofy, who are sent by their king to find the Keyblade wielder. Together they set off on a journey to other worlds, Donald and Goofy searching for the king, and Sora trying to find his friends. Along the way, they fight off Heartless and confront some scheming Disney villains. For the most part, I actually really like the story. Sure, it's dumb and gets super cheesy. The game's humor is embarrassing, and the Final Fantasy characters are, well, out of character. Like, seriously, why is Squall called Leon? It's stupid, and I don't even like Final Fantasy VIII that much. What I like instead is the simplicity of the story and this game's lore. You really do believe Sora wants to find his friends, and the different paths him and Riku take create an interesting dynamic. To me, the story has a lot of charm to it that makes the ride entertaining, which is why I enjoy it, even if I have some issues with certain events at the end. Kingdom Hearts is an action RPG with some platforming aspects, which is a concept I really like. First off, the game doesn't explain this, but the dream segment at the beginning will determine your starting stats and which abilities you'll learn at different levels. Personally, I always go Shield. The questions you're then asked will determine how much EXP you will need to level up, which is kind of a neat idea, and I understand why people choose the slow level up for early levels, which then quickens up later on, but I prefer to stick with a more balanced progression. Anyway, a majority of the game is going to consist of Sora and his friends traveling to new worlds, helping the residents of that world, and sometimes heading back to Traverse Town. There are a few times when progression can be a little confusing, but by exploring the worlds or talking to NPCs, you'll get a good idea of what to do. Admittedly, a few worlds can be confusing to navigate, such as Atlantica with its okay swimming controls, and Wonderland, which, to be fair, is kind of the point of that world being confusing to navigate. Traverse Town will act like that of a hub, as here you'll be able to visit shops for items, accessories, and gummy parts, as well as being able to synthesize items and equipment. You'll have to head back here a few times as well just to progress the story. The synthesis shop is certainly the most useful to me, as I never really found it necessary to buy items. Plus, a few of the accessories you can get from the synthesis shop are really useful. The way you get from world to world is by flying to them via the gummy ship, and this is one of my biggest issues with the game. The flight segments are extremely dull, slow, and rather tedious. Thankfully, you'll eventually get the ability to warp between worlds, but for every first visit, you're going to have to go through these boring flight sections. They're not very engaging, they're not hard, and they just take forever. The next issue I have with the game is its controls, or more specifically, the camera. It's weird having it locked to the L2 and R2 buttons, but what makes things annoying and more unbearable is how slow the camera is. Next would be Sora's jumping. For fights, it's fine, but for platforming, it's quite awful with just how stiff and awkward the action is. Thankfully, you'll get abilities that make the platforming much better, like high jump and being able to glide. It's once you get these abilities that the game's worlds really start to shine for me, and exploring them becomes less annoying, and there are plenty of hidden treasures and trinities to find. A trinity, by the way, is a special mark that can reward you with treasure chests or open up new areas. They do require that you have Donald, Goofy, and Sora in your team at that time, and some of the worlds you'll be able to get new party members, or specific party members I should say, such as Tarzan and the Beast. However, most of the time you're going to want to keep it as Sora, Donald, and Goofy since certain trinities are needed to even progress the game, and they're kind of important. Thankfully, fighting off Heartless is fun. As you progress through the game, you'll get new magic spells and keyblades, with each keyblade having its own strengths and weaknesses. Honestly, it's just fun collecting new keyblades as well, with some of my favorites being the Olympia, Metal Chocobo, which sure doesn't have great stats, but I really like the look of it, and Lady Luck. I really appreciate how attacking enemies can replenish your MP, so you don't have to rely on items too much, which helps keeps the combat more consistently active, creating a small little feedback loop. Every time you hit an enemy, you restore MP, and MP is good for either healing yourself if need be, or casting some strong spells or using strong abilities. At all times you'll have this command menu, where you can select items and spells, which at first was kind of awkward to get used to it. Nowadays I don't mind it, as it's quick to navigate. Thankfully, whatever spells I use the most can be assigned to a quick select, which is great. Unfortunately, when it comes to summons, I don't tend to use them too much, except for maybe Simba. I'm sure they have their uses, I just didn't experiment with them enough. Fighting with the Keyblade itself is fun, as attacks have a nice sense of impact. I just wish you got the guard ability earlier on, but thankfully you do get dodge roll pretty early on in Traverse Town. Though flying enemies can be annoying, especially when it gets to Hollow Bastion where you can fall because Sora auto-selects to them, and large bodies can get frustrating to fight in almost all the games. That's another thing. As you level up, you'll earn new abilities, some passive, like Item Boost or Fire Boost, while others will give you new moves like Sonic Raid. Revisiting worlds, you can also discover a few side quests, like finding the Dalmatian puppies, taking on Colosseum tournaments in Olympus, vine sliding in Deep Jungle, and a couple hidden bosses, and getting rare items from these special mushroom guys. Lastly, I want to mention Jiminy's Journal, which acts as a bestiary, letting you learn about the characters and monsters of the worlds, even letting you know which movie and game they originate from, which is something that I have always appreciated in RPGs. I just like learning about the environment and the world that my characters inhabit. In addition to that, it also keeps track of the Dalmatian puppies you've rescued and how many trinities you found, which is nice for those who like to do completionist things. With a great cartoon art style, vibrant colors, well-detailed character models, and fluid and expressive animations, I would say this game's visuals still hold up quite nicely. I really love a lot of the designs for the Heartless, as I find them to be just really fun, with things like shadows, pirates, and these mage-style enemies. I also really enjoy the diverse amount of locations you get to visit. We have this old town at night with Traverse Town, a lush jungle with Deep Jungle, the underwater Atlantica, even though the swimming controls are a bit stiff, an ancient mythical castle in Hollow Bastion, and Agrabah with its bazaar and ruins. What's really neat is Halloween Town, which gives characters a different look and texture. Atlantica also changes how Sora, Donald, and Goofy look as well, which are some small visual detail changes that I appreciate. Lastly, the music in the game is fantastic. There's such a variety of whimsical, mysterious, and climactic pieces. Some themes worth listening to would be Simple and Clean, of course, Dearly Beloved, Dive into the Heart, Treasured Memories, Night of Fate, and Fragments of Sorrow, just to name a few. In the end, I still like this game. It has a simple and charming story, fun enemies and great music, and once you have better movement abilities, traveling around the different worlds is much more entertaining. Sure, the camera controls are off, and the gummy ship, to me anyway, sucks. But I still have fun with the original Kingdom Hearts. Plus, it's a short game, lasting only about 22 hours, and even on normal, it isn't all that hard. I would recommend the PlayStation 2 original to die-hard fans who haven't yet experienced this game. However, I would be more likely to suggest people to play the HD versions of Kingdom Hearts Final Mix. This version not only adds an extra secret boss, but also some new abilities and accessories, as well as keyblades. On top of that, you get better camera controls, you can actually open chests during fights, abilities like Sonic Raid are easier to gain access to when in battle, and you can skip cutscenes. I wouldn't say the first Kingdom Hearts is an amazing game, but it's one I still have a soft spot for, which is why I go back to it from time to time. It's simple, and you get the impression that they were testing some new ideas here, and I really like the attempt to combine some platforming elements with an action RPG. It results in a game that's certainly its own experience. Join me next time where we'll be taking a look at KH2, a game I find to be even more special, so I'll see you all then.